Welcome to another DragonLance Saga Order of Aesthetics news episode. It is Bakukal New Cult 23rd. My name is Adam, and today I was sifting through the Iconic Chronos, and I ran across some interesting news, some sad news we're going to lead with here in just a second. But before we get into that, I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and YouTube and Patreon patrons, and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even grab Dragonlance Media or $10 by signing up to startplaying.games using my affiliate links in the description below. All right, so before we actually get into the show, let me sort of cap over what we're going to talk about. It's going to be, unfortunately, the passing of Jean Rabe. We're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons and Fortnite. We're going to talk about AI with Dungeons & Dragons, and then we're going to close it out for the number one rule for D&D in an editorial that I thought was kind of interesting because I always thought that was just what everyone thought, but apparently I was wrong. So before we dive into that, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming anthology. That's right. I'm going to bug you guys until it's out. We only have like 4 more weeks, I think, until the due date, which is March 1st, 2026. So if you want to be a part of DL Saga history, be very specific about the wording. If you really want to participate in this anthology, I need you to send me a short story that's under 8,000 words. And then ultimately, hopefully, entertaining and good. But there's ways that you can actually let me know that you're writing it. So if you go to dlsaga.com/contributors, you'll come to this page and you'll see all of the submission details necessary for putting your own short story in here, but also a form so you can let me know to save space for you if you are in fact planning on submitting. Now, I've gotten a lot of submission notes. I've got a short handful of short stories received. I do need more. So if you want to be a part of this, then please, I would encourage you to either fill out the form on the website or shoot me an email at info@dlsaga.com. And of course, I also wanted to talk about the benefits for members and patrons for those of you who may not be aware. So members and patrons get weekly readings and monthly virtual tabletop downloads. And this goes back over a year of content. And in fact, with the weekly readings, I think it goes back like two plus years. I do have a Discord, which has sections specific for just patrons and YouTube members. And then I also give you discounts on all DL Saga merchandise, whether it's through like Teespring stores or whether it's through my own store on dlsaga.com. Those discount codes work with all of it. And then lastly, I've actually, because I've started the professional DMing on startplaying.games, I'm going to be giving patrons that are the developer patron level 2 free sessions a month. And it's not accumulative or anything, but you get free games. So you get to play the game for free with other people who are joining live as well. So if that's something that interests you, then consider doing it. If not, that's okay. Let's get into the show. Cool. So first and foremost, rest in peace, Jean Rabe, Dragonlance author and first head of the RPGA network. Author, editor, and writer Jean Rabe recently passed away on January 19th, 2026. Jean Rabe started her career in the game industry as an employee of TSR Inc. There, she was the first head of the RPGA network and editor of Polyhedron, the official magazine of the RPGA. She was also a novelist for TSR Inc. She wrote and edited Dungeons & Dragons and Gamma World modules. She left TSR in 1994 to become a freelance writer and worked as the editor of Battletech magazine, Mech Force for FASA, and wrote short stories for West End Games' Star Wars Adventure Journals. Rabe is most well known for her work on Dragonlance. She penned several Dragonlance novels, including Dragons of a New Age trilogy and the Stone Tellers trilogy. She's survived by her husband, Bruce Rabe. ICV2 offers its sincerest condolences to her family and friends, and so does everyone here at DL Saga. And hopefully, whether you enjoyed any of the work that she put out there or not, you can at least recognize that she was a seminal contributor to Dragonlance, and she had huge influence in the fifth age of Krynn specifically, whether it was through the Dragons of a New Age trilogy or through her contributions to the Saga system fifth age game, and then later to the second edition Saga sort of crossover games. She was really, really influential in the outcome. I mean, she was noted as being put in a position to fill the boots of Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman in the fifth age of Krynn. So that was like what she was brought in to do, to write that initial trilogy that would introduce everyone to this brand new, not just game system, but era in Dragonlance. And it was wildly divisive. Not everyone enjoyed it, but for as many people as I've heard say they did not enjoy the Dragons of a New Age trilogy, they certainly enjoyed her short stories, which were fantastic, and the other books that she put out. I have never read the Stonetellers trilogy, but just looking at her sort of bibliography, things that she contributed to, I mean, it's incredible the influence she had, not just with Dragonlance, of course, but just TSR in general. She did great, like Krynn Space, she wrote. Marquess de Carthon, she helped with Tina Daniel. I enjoyed that one. The Silver Stair, I didn't enjoy it as much, but it was okay. I never read the Daman Saga, but it is coming up in my list of readings. And then Lake of Death. I can't remember if I read that. I have to have read that, right? I've read so many of these books. I honestly don't remember if I've read that yet or not. And then I have not read the Stonetellers trilogy yet, but I have heard good things about it, which is always nice. But then you look at the other stuff that she's done, Endless Quest series of books. The Endless Quest series were great. I grew up on Choose Your Own Adventure novels. That's how I found my love for reading. And if it wasn't for like the Hardy Boys and Choose Your Own Adventures, I probably wouldn't have ever picked up a Dragonlance novel. And, you know, from that, it just spurred my love of reading and got me into deeper, I should say, into tabletop role-playing games, and then ultimately focusing on storytelling and dungeon mastering in tabletop role-playing games. So I think it's very cool that she was a part of that as well. And of course, all the anthologies that she's been a part of. So she has literally contributed to so many different IP out there in her storied writing life that it is sad when you have to say goodbye to someone who's, you know, been a seminal part of what we all love so much. So condolences go out to her family, and, you know, we thank her for everything that she has done to bring Dragonlance to life, which is a considerable amount. Now, this was what I found what is interesting. Dragonlance Death March, which is the second of the Stonetellers series, was actually nominated for a special gaming scribe award. It's got to be good, right? If it's nominated, I've got to read the Stoneteller trilogy. I think that is like one of the two final trilogies ever released on Dragonlance until Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman's Destinies trilogy. So, yeah, have you guys read them? You got to let me know what you think if you have. In any case, let me know what you think of Jean Rabe. Of course, we have to be honest. Whether we liked a particular project or not, it's okay. You have your opinions. It's okay not to enjoy something. So let us know in the comments, you know, what you think. All right, next up, Dungeons & Dragons comes to Fortnite as Wizards of the Coast explores how Dungeons & Dragons can connect with players. The Fortnite ecosystem has now consumed another beloved property. Now, I saw that, of course, Star Wars was a part of it, and seeing that Dungeons & Dragons is brought into being a part of it, I am not surprised. Dungeons & Dragons coming to Fortnite only seemed like a matter of time. I got to be honest, I've never played Fortnite. I have zero interest in playing. I don't even know what it is. I assume it's a battle royale type game, like, I don't know, like back in the day Quake was for me. But, you know, I don't know. I assume that's what it is. In any case, the iconic role-playing game has never really gone out of style since it debuted in the 1970s, and it's currently riding a pop culture wave thanks to it being central piece of the storytelling in Netflix's Stranger Things. Fortnite, on the other hand, incorporates anything popular it can get its hands on, whether it's popular athletes, iconic TV show and movie characters, or even memes like whatever 6'7" is. I don't even know what that means. Yes, the meme has its own emote. I don't even have a clue what that means. Dungeons & Dragons, on the other hand, has a new set of creative islands in Fortnite, which sounds like just the beginning for the publisher, Wizards of the Coast. Revealed by Wizards on Tuesday, D&D's entrance into Fortnite is thanks to a partnership between the company and a community. Creators Chartis and TerraVision Games, who are responsible for the community-made games Zombie Escape Tag and Havoc Hotel. In a press release, Wizards of the Coast notes that these new islands are designed as part of a Launch and Learn initiative to explore how Dungeons & Dragons can connect with a diverse range of Fortnite players in fun and meaningful ways. So it's just like a dev test. That initiative aims to help Wizards of the Coast find new ways to expand the Dungeons & Dragons audience. Accordingly, the 5 islands released seem designed to appeal to different types of Fortnite players. The islands available include a special hub, PvP arena, co-op boss fight, and a co-op roguelike, which Wizards of the Coast says is the largest in Fortnite history. I don't even know what these mean. Working directly with creators on developing islands fit perfectly with Dungeons & Dragons homebrewing ethos, letting the players themselves help guide the way that stories are experienced. All right, so let's watch this so we can understand what they're talking about.
They lurk in the shadows. Ancient evils and dark forces. The natural order is at stake. And so, new heroes shall rise. What will you do? Forge your path. Rise up. Become a hero.
All right. We're bringing the spirit of D&D homebrew to Fortnite, supporting creators, experimenting in new mediums, and learning how we can introduce Dungeons & Dragons to new players. Dungeons & Dragons franchise strategy director Nick Strawn said in a release, D&D already means so much to all who have joined us at the table, and we hope that we can make it just as meaningful for millions of Fortnite fans. We very much look forward to hearing player feedback on these creator-made islands and using the feedback to shape future adventures wherever people love D&D. To join the new Dungeons & Dragons island, use the codes below, and you can screenshot this or follow the link in my show notes, or just Google it yourself. Hoping these islands are successful enough to get D&D items added to the shop. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you play this is what I've never really understood about Hasbro's desire to monetize D&D in a microtransactional way. It's kind of against the spirit of Dungeons & Dragons in the first place. All you need, well, first of all, you don't need anything, but all you need is the basic rules. So a player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, monster manual. That's it. With those 3 things, or if you want to go back to older editions, you need even less than that. But with those 3 things in whatever edition you want to play, you can play any style adventure or experience or story that you want to go through. You don't need, the whole point of Dungeons and Dragons is that you don't have those stark visuals, is that it's your imagination. That's the strength of Dungeons and Dragons. And so I've never understood this need of Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro to try to throw it into the video game space. While I know everyone loves video games, mixing tabletop role-playing and video games, neither one of those is going to be as successful as if you just had one or the other. Like, even the ones like Baldur's Gate 3, that's a video game. You're not sitting around with other people trying to tell a story with it. You're going through a narrative experience. So it's a pure video game, even though the back end of it has D&D mechanics involved. It's still just a video game. It's not a mixture of the two. This is just Fortnite. You're fighting a dragon, shooting guns and stuff. Like, that's not Dungeons and Dragons. That's not it. It doesn't ever make that leap of connection. And when they tried to do it, have that virtual 3D tabletop, it just ate shit and went away. The whole sigil thing. Because it didn't even follow their own rules. Because you can't ultimately when you have a complex game system like 5th edition 2024. So I really think they just need to stop trying to mix them. Sure, use the IP in whatever ways you want, but don't try to say it's Dungeons and Dragons when no, it's just Fortnite. You just are skinning some things to look like a dragon or, have a sword or something. I'm okay standing on an island here, but I can't be the only one with this opinion. And we all want to have those immersive experiences, but we already have it with tabletop role-playing. We really don't need more than that. And it doesn't make it any richer of a communal experience playing online with other people in basically a combat arena situation, at least not in my experience. So anyway, let me know. Do you guys play Fortnite? Are you excited for Dungeons and Dragons themes or islands or adventures to go explore and play? And if so, can you please let an old fart like me know why? Because I don't get it. I really don't. I want to. I'm not mocking anyone for loving what they love. I just don't understand it. All right, next up, scientists forced AI language models to play Dungeons and Dragons to see how well they concentrate. The performances were hammy and the goblins incredibly irritating. I can only imagine. All right. Researchers from UC San Diego got large language models, LLMs, to play the popular fantasy tabletop role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons in an attempt to evaluate their performance over time. Generally, in AI research, the focus has been evaluating their performance in short-term tasks. But AI agents are increasingly being asked to perform tasks that require them to act independently, or semi-independently, over long periods of time. This piece of research attempted to address that by monitoring several LLMs during a game of Dungeons & Dragons. Quote, Dungeons & Dragons is a natural testing ground to evaluate multi-step planning, adhering to rules, and team strategy. Amandroulu, the study's senior author and faculty member of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at UC San Diego, explained in a statement. Because play unfolds through dialogue, Dungeons & Dragons also opens up a direct avenue for human-AI interaction. Agents can assist or co-play with other people. The team got the LLMs to work with a game engine programmed with the rules of Dungeons & Dragons. This engine provided the maps needed for the game, including where resources were located, in order to minimize AI hallucinations. During the game, the AI agents would act as players as well as monsters being fought in the campaign, which focused solely on combat. All right, we're going to watch this.
Today we're going to create 3 different AI characters and then see if they can survive.
Trail of slime and speeds towards the alchemist.
Okay, beautiful.
Leaving a sticky path behind to trip up any pursuit.
The god rushing
this
towards
isn't good.
sunlight.
This isn't good.
Let's create a path for our daring heist. Love the passion rod has decided he will not stand for.
Not interested. As well as playing against themselves and fellow AI agents, the LLMs played against 2,000 experienced human players. They were evaluated based on how well they kept track of what was going on. For example, the resources and actions available, on what actions they took during the game, as well as how well they stayed in character. During the experiment, the LLMs were found to devolve into hammy performances, with warlocks being particularly dramatic even when the situation didn't call for it, and paladins making heroic speeches at inappropriate times. LLMs playing goblins started regurgitating irritating canned phrases like, "Heh, shiny man's gonna bleed," during fights, and there were significant differences between the models. DeepSeek v3 consistently produced a short first-person action beats and monster taunts, e.g., "I dart left, get them." However, it tends to reuse the same voices with the scenario, so the number of distinct traits stays narrow, the team explains in their report, adding that Claude Haiku 3.5 was better at modifying its speech to fit the character class. GPT 4.0 usually sits between these behaviors. It mixes vivid stage directions and more tactical and meta phrasing, so its persona density is middling, while its trait variety is comparable to DeepSeek v3. Overall, the team found that the chatbots performed well, though they did struggle with long-term tasks. Our evaluation across 6 metrics revealed that large language models produced a promising result in rule-based conversion simulation. Smaller open-source language models, however, are not yet capable of giving consistent simulation, which might be because their pre-trained tuning is different compared to the D&D simulation task, the team wrote in their paper. All LLMs exhibit progressive degradation in long horizon scenarios. The team's next plan to simulate a full Dungeons & Dragons campaign rather than purely the combat element. Hopefully, the goblins can sort out their own dialogue before that happens. The work was presented at the Nuri IPS conference in December 2025 and posted on Open Review. So I find this interesting because there is always this element of TTRPG playing where people want to do solo adventuring. And so you'll get like game books for solo play, or there's solo games or solo modes for different TTRPGs. And then, of course, there's just solo TTRPGs that you can pick up and buy. All that being said, using an AI model defeats the whole purpose of a solo game. So it's definitely not for them. So then if it's not for solo play, what is that the point exactly? Because you could just get humans. There are so many places online in wildly disparate social media networks or VTT forums, actual play settings, and paid for play game setups. You can literally find a game anywhere. And if you don't want to do any of that, because all of that's all online, there's gaming stores. You just go in a brick and mortar and sit down and ask them if you can join them, or look for when games are playing or when pickup groups are around. Being able to play a TTRPG is more accessible now than it has ever been in all of our history. So why would you ever need to lean on AI in order to do that? And I know the scientists here are doing it so they can test the growth and cognitive level of the AI models, not so they can play Dungeons and Dragons. But you know that there are players out there who are playing Dungeons & Dragons just with AI. And look, if that's what you're into, that's cool. But we need to remember the point of tabletop role-playing is imaginative shared experiences and storytelling. And when you're doing that with an AI model, it's not the same as a human being, even if it's over the air like the internet. First of all, the entire AI trend of, promises that are made that it's going to revolutionize industry have yet to be realized. And even their own growth models, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT, have failed to be accurate. Everything is going infinitely slower than everyone in those industries had promised it would be. The exponential growth just isn't there. You need more computing power and more energy resource. And they're already spiking up communities' energy usage and costs. So the cost of AI development is being burdened by the rest of society, whether you leverage AI in any way or not. And the promise of it to offset that cost's detriment is not being seen. So what exactly are we looking for out of AI? Because all it's doing at this point is detrimental to our culture at large, the way I see it. People have lost jobs, especially in my industry. And if it advances at the rate that AI companies claim, infinitely more people are going to be losing their jobs. Resources are more expensive because of the massive data center usage. There doesn't seem to be a net positive as of yet. And I know our entire economy in the US right now is artificially propped up on the promise of AI. And if it's not delivered, if it tanks, we are going to be just dropped off a cliff into a massive recession like we haven't seen since 2008 with the housing crisis. So I use AI when it comes to refining things or when it comes for ideation generation, but I don't use it as a shortcut to thinking itself. You know what I mean? So I just hate the idea that people are one, expecting AI to be some grand savior of whatever, or two, using it as an shortcut to human interaction, because it's not human. It's incapable of being human-like. I know that's the promise. We just haven't seen it realized yet. And in the choppy, artificial way that it is being human-like, we've seen it do horrible things, like incentivize people to kill themselves in some cases, or push them toward pornography rather than real human interaction, which is infinitely more enjoyable. So it's just strange to me. Hey, Saka-san, how you doing? Unfortunately, a lot of people drop out quickly or ghost. It's really hard to find a reliable group. That is very true. Yes, you're 100% accurate with that. I still would argue that AI is not the answer to a gaming group or sitting around and having a communal experience. Because again, the game and the storytelling is even secondary to the human interaction, which is where the joy and surprise really comes from, at least whenever I'm at a table, physical or virtual. So I don't know. Am I just like old man on his porch shouting, "Get off my lawn"? And, I'll accept that if that's the case. Let me know what you guys think when it comes to AI and using Dungeons and Dragons in order to determine whether or not the cognitive level of the AI is up to par or not for long-term thinking. And then, do you use AI for Dungeons and Dragons in any way? I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. I know when people have referenced it in rulings at my table, it's consistently wrong. Even when generating backgrounds, like for Dungeons and Dragons, for DragonLance specifically, it's incorrect and wrong. It was talking about how Nordmar is this icy region where a barbarian came from. And I was just like, nope, that is not true at all. And even in rulings, like I had a player make a claim about a healer's kit that was just not in the rules, but they found it on ChatGPT, or actually they were using Grok, I think. So it's 100% not always accurate. 100%. It works 70% of the time, 100% of the time. Whatever that quote is. In any case, I just don't think it's there, and I don't think it's something that we should. And even like it has its own disclaimer on whatever model you're using that says this is not always accurate. Double check the facts. So I would just say, if you want to know a ruling, the player's handbook's always there. If you're curious about any information, you can search it yourself. You don't have to rely on AI. And at this point in AI's generation, it's relying on us more than we're relying on it. And that's terrifying because the information that it gets is from us, in which we are then asking it for that same information. And so it's only as accurate as we are. And how many people do you trust walking down the street if you ask them some random question that it's going to be right? I don't trust people very often for very many things. So I certainly wouldn't trust AI to know when it's only getting information from us anyway. All right. That being said, let me know in the comments. I appreciate what you have to say. Last story. I finally understood the #1 rule for Dungeons and Dragons, and it changed my game forever. So there's a golden rule among the Dungeons & Dragons community that took me a while to grasp, but once I did, it forever changed how I see my games, as both a dungeon master and a player at the table. Technically speaking, there's a huge list of rules for the popular TTRPG, which is often something that pushes potential players away from it. There are some D&D rules you can ignore. Actually, you can ignore them all if you really wanted to. A lot of them are flexible based on what works best for the table and what the DM finds appropriate. However, outside of the official framework and even some homebrew rules for Dungeons & Dragons, some community-driven rules and guidelines help you better appreciate the game. There's one that is frequently echoed by the community, but it only really clicked with me recently. Whenever a phrase like this, by the community, is referenced, I'm always wondering, what exactly do you mean by that? Do you mean your social media feed? Do you mean Discord or Reddit channel? Like, what is this community? Because I have never felt like I've been a part of a community until I started this channel, in which case this DragonLance community that we all connect with is just about DragonLance and it's just here. It's not like this global thing. I mean, we connect globally, obviously, but it doesn't spread outside of this. Everyone that connects here has myriads of other connections everywhere else that has nothing to do with this. So the whole community thing is really just isolated to you and your island, wherever that island may be in the digital space. And so then it's just being solipsistic to suggest that every other D&D community, wherever that may be, is echoing the exact same thing or engaging the exact same way. And we all know that that is completely not true. So I don't know. It shouldn't even bother me, but it kind of does. So there's nothing better than being a fan of your fellow Dungeons & Dragons players. Caring about characters is the pillar of storytelling. The unofficial rule of the TTRPG is to be a fan of your fellow players. This changes everything. It can be a bit tough to get into the mindset if you're still learning the ropes of the game and are preoccupied with what you're going to do and how to do it. And even more so if the other players don't really care all that much about their characters in Dungeons & Dragons to the point that they seek narrative development or tactical decisions apart from the builder's bread and butter. Nevertheless, if you do see yourself as a fan of your fellow players, you can't go back. It's likely you're already being invested in your own character's journey and abilities, but if you can cheer on for the other players' characters at the table in the same manner, you'll learn to appreciate the game a lot more. You'll not only be happy when your own character's story progresses, but you'll be rooting for whatever happens with your friends' characters too. This is why Dungeons & Dragons actually play shows get us hooked. Actual play shows. Take Critical Role, for example. We learn about the cast characters, their motivations, their fears, and celebrate when they succeed and mourn when they fail. Caring about characters is one of the pillars of storytelling across all media, and it shouldn't be different in your table. It's not about creating a complex weave of narrative arcs, but seeing player characters develop too. Cheering for your friends' characters as if they were your own changes everything. It's a reminder that Dungeons & Dragons is a collaborative storytelling game. Rooting for a fellow character's accomplishments is a sign that you're involved in the story in a similar way that you're involved with your own character. It's less about caring solely about your own character's journey, but the collaborative story you're telling as a group in D&D. As a fellow player, you'll be intrigued by the revelations that occur in another character's story arc. Meanwhile, as DM, you'll be thrilled by the decision that player of yours makes with the situations that are thrust upon them. Surely the TTRPG can be played in a way that combat and mechanics are the top priority, but if you can get enticing narrative arcs and develop along the way and keep you hooked on top of the central plot that unites the Dungeons & Dragons heroes, why wouldn't you? So to try to be a devil's advocate, I guess the only reason why you wouldn't want to do that is because you're only focused on yourself. But then that's not really that communal experience of sitting around the table and having that shared storytelling experience. So I've always assumed this is what people did. It never occurred to me that someone else at the table would not care about someone else at the table, simply because it's not their character. Like, I assumed everyone was invested in everyone's story, and that's what propelled decisions and engagement, role-playing, and everything. But apparently not. Apparently this is new to some people, which means some people don't care about other people's journey at the same table. Which, as a dungeon master, kind of hurts a little bit, because then you're like, well, then they just don't care about the story that you're setting up and that they're telling in shared experience. They only care about how it impacts them, not anyone else. So I think it's good that people are throwing this idea out there. Like, no, we should be a fan of each other at the table, because then you care about success and their achievements as much as your own. Because, again, you're cheering for the table, right? I don't know. You had a DM who thrived on player strife? That's sadistic. Yeah, even as a DM, I get excited and champion the players in their choices. And when they win, I'm just like, yeah, I get excited too. And I feel like you should care, right? If you are antagonistic, like you're mentioning here, as that other DM, thriving on strife, as a player, why would you ever stay with them? Unless it's like the only option you have immediately. But I would definitely talk to them and be like, hey, what's going on? Why are you like this? What is it about this game that makes you like to like shoot us down or try to kill us or try to pit us against each other? Or, I experienced it once in 3rd edition where I was running a game at a table where we just sort of rotated DMs, and we had a new player come in, and I set up the player. My plan as the dungeon master was to have the player come in initially as an antagonist and then get turned by role-playing. What ended up happening was they didn't turn, and they ended up attacking each other, which was not at all my intention. And the whole time I was like, well, what about these scenarios? Or what about this as an outcome? Or what about that? Trying to give different options other than just, well, then they're an enemy and we're going to kill them. But no one wanted to pick up on it. And so it ended up where there was no trust at the table because of the way I set it up unintentionally. And again, it was totally my fault, but everyone just played into it, and then no one wanted to go around it. No one wanted to just try to find the good in the characters. And that became really frustrating for everyone at the table and myself. But again, that was because I set it up a specific way, unintentionally creating that strife. So I wonder if that's similar to what he went through, or if he was just doing it intentionally and just being a dick. In any case, I totally understand when it's unintentional, because I have done it myself. I've made every mistake I could possibly make, I believe, thus far as a dungeon master. And I'll continue to make mistakes because I'm a human being, and that's what we do. We make mistakes and we learn from them. So, all right. Well, that is really all I had for today's news episode. Do you find any joy in the other people at your table, the other players' achievements, or interest in their story arcs that unfold at the table? I know I run games with people who just don't really care about that stuff, and so they sort of tune out until action starts. And that's just, some players are into some parts of the game and some players aren't. There's just no two ways about it. Everyone comes to the table for different things. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Put it in the comments below. That is going to do it for this Order of Aesthetics news episode, though. Do you have a favorite Jean Rabe project? Do you enjoy watching actual plays? And finally, do you have any favorite rules that you've discovered after having played TTRPGs for a while? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you to creator patron Aaron Hardy, producer patron Azrael, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join in that celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.